o'clock. Marwan is may show up later. We're not entirely certain. He's got a very, very, very busy man right now. But this is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. This is episode 60. And as you know, every 5 episodes, we like to spin it up and do something a little bit different. Tom Martin is joining us. And Tom is going to be co hosting at several shows in the next near future as we move forward. So, owner of Black Ring Spirits at the Town Center Mall in South Kitsap, Port Orchard, makes incredible bourbons, and also an anthropologist and a fencer. So, I have a high interest in anthropology. I have a gentleman named Dr. Jay Silverstein, who I talk to frequently about the things we do. I'm also a fencer, or was in my younger days. So Tom and I have a lot of things to connect with. Today's show is going to be a little different. We're going to talk a little bit about, well, actually, we're going to talk a lot about hope, but we're going to start it off with answering the question that was left on the table last week. Marwan asked about how things get co-opted. And I have a brilliant example. Now, I'm not Marwan, so I can't put it up. But if you go to the Guardian newspaper online and look for Elon Musk creating a utopian city, you'll come up with the article. And I'm going to open this up now. I always struggle with whether to talk about knee-jerk reactions before I put something up or after. In this case, I'm going to talk about it before a little bit. When you see something in the media, you got to understand that they're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get reads, they're trying to get looks. So they put things up that are very controversial. Huh? I'm sorry, Tom, what?
They're trying to make money.
They're trying to make money.
Right down to it.
And
mass media makes money when they get those clicks, when their ratings go up. And we're having some streaming issues.
Yeah, a little bit of slowness. Am I slow on your end too? Because I'm looking pretty clear on mine.
I'm getting some kind of draggy lag here. My computer may catch up. I was last second getting in the door, and it's still throwing alerts at me from having turned it on.
Well, you notice there's no background except for the Kitsap Resiliency Project up there, so which I will scan up to. I don't have the fancy thing, so Resilient Communities Thrive, Kitsap Resiliency Project, which is what we do all the time here. And I do mean all the time. Okay, so Elon Musk is building a town in Texas for his workers. Now, I'm not judging if this is good or bad, and I'll read the headline in a moment. It is something that's being done. Now, as we move forward and we start looking at housing homeless people, when we start looking at building low income to average income housing, there are a lot of things that we have to look at. And one of the things we may need to look at is a state-built facility, since the free market system is only focused at this time on high-end houses. And so rents are going there. Now, something interesting I discovered when talking to somebody in one of the organizations helping people with rent is that they take their numbers from HUD. I said, well, then why is it the market rates are so much higher than the market value here? Or the market, the basic incomes here? I said, well, we're told by HUD that the number we need to look at in the market rate is $102,000 a year. And I went, okay, so how many people do you know making $102,000? So that's based on a family of 4 dual incomes, because the average income here is $50,000 or $52,000, so $102,000 to $104,000. Okay, how many people do you know, couples do you know in this area that make $102,000 a year or more?
Not too many. Thank you. I out of all the people I know, and I'd like to think I've got a pretty wide network, maybe 25%.
Okay, but certainly it's not the average.
No.
So, but that's the average being used to determine what fair market value for the rents are, as we're moving from $1,600 to $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
And all of the new units going up are in the $2,000 range. So what does that do to the numbers for affordable housing?
Oh, well, it's more complicated than that, but that mess doesn't help.
No, it use real numbers to determine what the value is, but the numbers are obviously being manipulated, and
Oh,
they're being
sure. Well, why are
manipulated.
they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you know why they're being manipulated?
Well, that's a longer discussion, and we can actually delve into that into its own show because it's going to take an hour to talk about that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
the bottom line is to make money.
right. Yeah. The short answer is the land developers need to be paid.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they're
and
not going to build anything.
except that their developers aren't the issue now. Private equity is.
Right. Right. Oh, it. Yeah. Like you said, it's a little more complicated, but you know, in the end, it comes down to the bottom line.
It always does. And the bottom line is much higher for some people than others, and it doesn't look at the bottom line of the person that needs to have a home. We've already seen. I saw this in Silicon Valley. I saw it. I've seen it in Seattle. People who work in these places that keep the lifeblood going can't live there. In Silicon Valley, it got so
Right.
bad that people were going to work at Cisco Systems from Livermore. Thank God Bart's out there now, so they don't have to drive on the freeways. But they're looking at 2 hours each way to get home, and that's without a ferry. That's just straight traveling on public transit,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to drive on those roads, which could take you 3 hours to get out there. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you know
Well, we see
the
that here.
yeah, you see it here too.
Oh, I was going to say. I mean, we see that here in our own community. The people who work on Bainbridge Island don't live in Bainbridge Island.
Oh
And when
no,
I say the people who work there, I mean the firefighters, the police officers, etc.
yeah, the people that we depend on to make our lives easier. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. There we go. So I'm not quite chin in and feel like I have to chin up on the thing. Okay, so we're going back to Elon Musk, and so housing is going to be an issue. It already is an issue. We're looking at solutions, and and basically it's like the hot potato game. Everyone's bouncing it around and saying, "Not my responsibility. I can't deal with it." And there's not enough public will yet to push for other answers. And I know you don't particularly like a government solution to things, but sometimes that's the only
No, I
solution
think
that's
that's
going to
the
be.
problem.
Yeah. So in this case, Elon Musk is building a village, and I'm going to read the headline. So don't jerk your knee. I'm not judging this. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just pointing
Right.
out how the media is presenting it, because we're talking about how things get co-opted and how messaging goes out. And we will get to the hope. Okay, so this is the headline: Is Elon Musk creating a utopian city? The hellish heavenly history of company towns. And I just kind of
That
go,
headline is not historically inaccurate.
no, but it points out one thing without it's pointing out something to get you emotionally hooked before you even get into the article or understand what it's talking
Oh,
about.
yeah, without a doubt, yes.
And
Yeah, well, the
that's how
art or
things get co-opted. We get emotionally attached to and have an opinion before we even understand what it is. And how many people do you know
well the
personally that will take the time to understand what it is? Or will they just form an opinion and next thing you know, it'll be all over Facebook?
so I think you hit the nail on the head. The big problem there is the way that headline was written. You know,
Yeah.
it's reaching back to
We own our soul
the
to the
late
company store.
1800s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We owe our
Yeah,
soul to the company store.
exactly. You know,
Yeah.
back to the days of the westward expansion with the railroad towns and
Yep.
such. And so the knee jerk response, assuming you know that history, is to say, it's going to be bad. Um, but I think you're right. Probably between 40 and 60% of the people that read that headline won't dig into the article and vet anything or figure out where in this case where's Musk trying to go.
Right. And they might Google it and they'll Google something about company towns, and they will get a very biased, historically contextual piece that they will then write into their emotional opinion.
Yes. Well, the problem with using Google is Google's just like any other media company and has its own spin.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find hard data. You're not going to find numbers and facts. You're going to find opinion.
And you can get through all of that to something more real. And I'm going to lay a hook here. Terry, I know you're listening today. So, what is the first thing I teach people I work with? And she'll pop that up in a second. And there's been a lot of chat or going on with. Actually, I'm not sure if she will or not, because the Restream said this is going to be going out at 1 o'clock. So again, there's so many moving parts on this one; it's hard to follow. So I'll just give the punchline to this. First thing I teach anybody is ask the next question.
Right.
The emotional relays, these types of things, are a mile wide and an inch deep. You ask 2 or 3 questions, and you've blown through any conspiracy theory.
Well, the problem we have is we can't make all these things that we're talking about, all these discussions. We can't make emotional decisions about them.
No.
They're emotionally charged, but we have to put the emotion aside and kind of go Dr. Spock on it. And be emotionless and run with the logic.
Mr. Spock.
And that's,
As opposed to Dr. Spock, who is the baby doctor.
Yeah. No, Mr. Spock.
Yeah. Otherwise, we throw a tantrum and cry a lot.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing now.
Yes. No, so we are following Mr. or Dr. Spock.
Yeah, I guess we're following the wrong Spock. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we are trained almost from birth to have these emotional reactions and these knee-jerk reactions, and we actually have to relearn how not to.
Yeah, well, it's become a very, if you go and look back, I like digging into, I guess generational analysis, if you will.
Yep.
Right, looking at the greatest generation, and then the baby boomers and Gen X, and working my way, down the lineage, if you will.
Yeah, and we will talk about that specific thing just in a few moments.
Yeah, but if we look at things 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years, even 7 years ago, I think is probably more accurate. That was a less emotional analysis of things.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I kind of like to blame the 60s, the civil rights movement, and people starting to push for outcomes, equal outcomes, regardless of effort put into things. Equality of outcome versus equality of effort into the outcome.
That was a response to that was a political response to the movement. The movement was about the need of everybody to be basically treated equally and given the equal opportunities to do the best that they can do.
Right. But
and the political outcomes are not real outcomes.
Yeah. Well, what got muddy was when people had equal opportunities, but they didn't get equal outcomes. We got emotional about it as a society, and now we're in a mess.
Yeah. Yes and no. This is a whole long conversation, and I know you well know where I'm coming from on that. Again, movements get co-opted, and one of the ways they get co-opted is to have really actually bad political solutions offered up as platitudes to the people who were trying to get the movement going. And that's part of the part was a co-opting, just like media saying things that make that basically get an emotional response instead of thoughtful, contextual information.
Yep.
And we've been doing this for so long with infotainment now that we don't have the context to make good decisions because it is assumed by the media that we don't have the intelligence to make new decisions. So now we're going to swing into the actual conversation about hope. Because I had a long conversation last night with Terry's daughter, whose granddaughter is going through the
what we're doing that night?
Terry's granddaughter is going through the process of gender identity.
Okay.
And that's a big thing, having just gone through that with my daughter not too long ago. And I'm all for them to experiment and find out who they are and what they are.
Sure.
But the issue is, and I think that and I don't get political here, but this is just statistical data. The Republican Party has been losing and losing and losing and losing with their othering and divisive politics and no policy. And one of the reasons that we had the unexpected voters show up is because the younger people are coming out and saying no, no, and no. The Roe versus Wade, it became a polarizing issue for a lot of the young people.
Yes.
A lot of the things going on. And one of the reasons it's happening is because Gen Xers and Gen Zers, and now I think the next one's Gen A'ers, who are ones about ready to vote, are smarter than we were by a lot. And they're brutally, honest.
Yeah, well, and they've got this. I mean, they've got a world of information that can answer any of their questions instantly.
Right.
And you and I had to deal with the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
That took time.
It did. And the information age is absolutely a part of the reason, but they also cut through the bullshit really quickly and go to the heart of matters.
Or it was easy to pile it on. You've got to look at both sides of that coin. It's just as easy to pile the crap on as it is to scrape it off. So, I mean, we don't have honesty and clarity from either side. If we're going to go and talk about like what you were saying with the Republican Party, which is a disaster. They can't agree on who's going to take the garbage out, right?
Yep.
But we've got the same problem from the Democrats too. Both those sides are toxic and poison to.
And I'm not going to. And again, that's why I started with saying statistically, Democrats are winning more often, not because they have the winning policy that are fixing everything, but because the Republicans can't agree who's going to take the trash out.
Right. And the left is whether they agree or not.
Can we agree on?
They're combining behind one idea.
Yeah, let me see if we can agree on one thing here, because I look at things more globally. Our Democrats are not left. Our Democrats are center right.
Well,
compared to any other democracy in the world, our Democrats are center right.
Well, some people are upset at 7-Eleven because they
okay. I mean, for conversation's sake, when I get into these conversations and we're talking about, the United States, I just throw around left and right because that's the common vernacular.
And everybody does. And that's part of, I think, what we need to start addressing is we that's a polarizing thing, left and right, good and evil. Good or bad.
Well, that's what started this conversation exactly. Right. Is the idea of good and evil, and so if I am A, then you must be B, and I can't be bad, so therefore you must be, and that's why we are where we are now.
Yep. So
both sides sees the other side as the bad guy.
Right, and I will tell you that I know people from many spectrums. I know some libertarians, I know some Democrats, I know some Republicans, I know a lot of independents. And I will tell you that if they're thinking people, by and large, they ask questions, they get engaged, they look for information. We all, no matter what our official signs are, and I'm not sharing what mine is, all vote the same way.
We do. I do it on.
What do you mean by we all vote the same way?
Okay, so the people I talk to from different spectrums, when we sit down and
Mhm.
have a conversation about the election coming up and we start talking about things, we all
Mhm.
pretty much agree. One of the things we agree on is that we're voting for the lesser of two evils every single time.
Oh, totally agree. Yes.
So we
Okay.
agree on who we're
That's
voting. We agree on who we're voting for because it's the lesser of two evils, not
well.
because they're one party or the other. I've voted for both parties at one point or another.
So have
Um,
I.
because so it's more about thinking people than at least in my group of acquaintances than it is about Republican or Democrat. So let's stay away from the right and left and just look at it as people.
Well, I mean, you're on to something there. I think it's a little more complex than that because
Absolutely,
when
but
you and I,
this is media, so we can't get too complex.
yeah, well, when you and I sit down and have a conversation, it's you and I, and we are two intelligent human beings, but we're not. That's not where the problem is. The problem is with groups of people, and groups of people
Isn't it
are
always?
stupid.
Yeah, isn't that always the
Groups
case?
of people are dumb. So you can't have this conversation that we're having now with groups because
Nope.
they just fight.
Which is why the Kitsap Resiliency Project focuses on people getting to know each other one-on-one and having these
Right,
conversations.
right. And hopefully, this conversation here kind of becomes a bigger thing.
Yeah.
With
Just
group.
for context to everybody, Tom and I are not members of the same political party.
Nope.
Tom and I do not see all things equally. Matter of fact, we disagree on an awful lot of things. But
you know what's cool?
But we have great conversations about things that have changed each other's minds as we've looked at it.
Well, we do have great conversation, and in the end, we both want to be in the same place.
Yep.
We're just looking at two different roads to get there and the obstacles on those roads, and do those roads even get there? I don't know.
Yeah, but we look at it, we talk about it, we're thoughtful about it, we listen to each other, and I will tell you that Tom has changed my mind on a few things, and I'm pretty sure I've changed his on a couple of things too.
Without doubt.
So this is the path that gives me hope. But I want to go back to the Gen Zers and the next generation coming up, because they did change the last election. They're probably going to change the next election in 2024. And the generation coming after them is what I was talking to Terry's daughter last night, and she says these kids are brutal. They are brutally honest. They don't give a damn about what you think or what your opinion is. They're going to go right. They're going to cut right to the heart of it, and they're not going to waste any time doing it. And your feelings are probably going to lay on the floor with it if you're there, because they're looking at a future that is bleak. And they know it needs to change and needs to change now, and they're doing everything they can to change it. And that resonated with me, thinking, well, it's about bloody time. There's a group of people that woke up. I can't use the woke. Sorry, I didn't mean to say woke. I didn't want to alienate anybody.
I hope that's the case. So I've got I'm a dad to a Gen Zer.
Yeah.
But Isaac's definitely not into politics. This stuff is kind of over his head right now.
Yeah, I love the questions he asks, though.
Oh, he asks some questions that he doesn't quite realize are on the borderline of like genius. And I think that's because he's not emotionally charged about any of it. He just wants to ask the question to have some personal clarity.
And again, to provide context, because other people might think that you're dissing your child.
Oh, not at all.
Isaac is on the autism scale, so that's why Tom is saying that. There are specific things. Yeah. Tom does not think his child is dumb. Neither do I.
Isaac is brilliant.
He is. And his art is just phenomenal.
Yeah, but his grasp of facts and data and stuff is amazing. But when it comes time to plug it into a social thing or plug himself into a social thing, the plugs don't fit. He's still working on that.
Yeah, but he's a good kid. But Alex,
and I think
Isaac, yeah, no, I can still hear you. We had a momentary hiccup. Isaac aside, a lot of angry kids that are becoming well informed and who are about to start voting is to me a very hopeful thing.
So yeah, where I was going with all that was my experiences with the next generation, the next older generation. So instead of the Zs, it's more the millennials.
Yeah,
I've had some good conversation with quite a few millennials.
Was alcohol involved?
No, everyone was sober. Actually, millennials don't drink a lot. There's a small chunk of that population that drinks, but by and large, they're not big drinkers. So I can't sit down with a bourbon and talk with them. But I think the problem with the millennials is they've been drug into this world of mass media and social media and stuff, and they've been emotionally spun around. You know what I mean? And It doesn't matter where their loyalties lie or where their heart lies as far as political orientation or social orientation or anything like that. I think they're just all confused.
And they best get unconfused as quickly as possible by listening to their kids. As sorry as that sounds. So one of the things that I'm hopeful about is the fact that we're reaching tipping points. And I'd like to read you a Facebook post from today, if I can find it really quickly. I'm hoping I didn't fast forward past it, because that's always a problem. And I think I may have. Let me see if I can find it on this guy's site. Just a second.
Not that I wouldn't like to, but I have a lot of health problems.
And I know everybody loves to see me type.
Oh, that's
okay.
Late hours. Right.
Okay, I'm on his page. Let's see how far down it is.
Till 11.
Anyway, by and large, one of my friends on Facebook posted that the way we deal with our healthcare crisis in this country the cost of our healthcare is by providing medical bankruptcy. That's paraphrasing he said it a lot better than that. But basically, we have medical bankruptcy, and that 14% of the people questioned this year are probably going to be filing for medical bankruptcy by the end of this year. And 44.9-year-olds are the most likely to be affected by this because medical care costs so much. My response to this, and I'm not disagreeing with him. Matter of fact, I think healthcare in this country is atrocious, and I think my response covers that. Is that the days the people in this country are by and large treated to healthcare by check boxes, and are seen as income streams for big pharma.
Mm-hmm.
The time of having a relationship with your doctor, where you are a person and are viewed by the doctor as a human being that they know, and they know what your average is, so they can actually figure out what your problem may actually be, as opposed to going through a checkbox and seeing what it matches up to on the chart. That's gone. That's long gone. And that's, because of this, we don't really have healthcare in this country. It's a broken mess. It's an expensive, broken mess that's likely to cause bankruptcy.
I was having an interesting conversation with one of the guys at the radio station not too long after I started sitting in on the show. And, so we're all trying to get to know each other a little bit, and what are our motivations, and alignments, I guess, because that's what we talk about on the show.
Right.
And one of the conversations was, is medical care, in the United States, is medical care a right? And so we had
hello, Paul.
Yeah, I wasn't going to throw Paul under the bus. But
you did, I did.
Pardon?
You did, and I did.
I know. Yeah. But so he and I were having this conversation, right? And so is medical care a right? And on paper, according to the Constitution, etc., no, it is not a right. However, it's a necessity. We all have to have it.
I don't have a whole lot of money, but I sure.
So, now we're having this conversation about, well, what's more important, your rights or your necessities? And that just ran him into a brick wall, because there's a part of our population that says, my rights, my rights, my rights, and those are what's most important. Is it? Are your rights more important than your necessities?
If your rights
and should your necessities be right?
So here's the thing. Oh, hold on, Marwan's messaging me. Here's the thing. Shouldn't your necessities and your rights align?
Yeah, well, that's why I just said. I mean, shouldn't your necessities be rights, or shouldn't your rights be necessities? So and that that kind of that stalled the conversation, because I don't know that there's an answer to it right now.
Okay, so Marwan is likely to show up in a few moments.
Cool.
So we'll see what's happening with that. It should be, but that's why we have the amendment process to the Constitution of the United States. That process we haven't used in a very long time.
Very, very long time.
Yeah. And I think that if we approach things like a human rights amendment, we could address a lot of the shortfalls in those viewpoints.
But I'm going to start putting on my Facebook.
I think it would be great if we could get something like that started in this country. A little bit of traction, but we are so divided right now. Going back to that the base of this conversation, the whole good and evil thing. That's what's dividing us at the moment. So while we're deadlocked in that, we're not going to make any forward progress for any good for anyone. We got to get past this deadlock.
Yeah, and that happens on a person-to-person, neighborhood-to-neighborhood basis.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, and that's what we teach at our workshops, is how to do that, how to not take things personally, how to realize that you shouldn't take things personally because it's not about you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you can call me any kind of name you want. I look at you and go, okay, well, yeah, but why are you calling me that? That's your viewpoint based on your life experience. It really has nothing to do with me.
Right.
The night of the market, or
not that you would.
Right. Well, I think most reasonable people on conversations like this don't. It's not till you get to a small percentage of the population that gets a little bit militant in their views, and you can't have conversation with them on any level.
So that goes back to the 80-20 rule. When you're looking at a tipping point happening, it only takes 20% of the people going in the same direction, and everybody else will eventually follow on.
Right. I think the problem we're seeing right now is those small percentages are, and I'm not pointing at one group or another. I'm honestly pointing at both ends of the spectrum. Those are the loud minorities right now that are driving the narrative for everything. I think the 80% is stuck in the middle at the moment, pulling their hair out.
Yeah, and trying to figure out where these crazy people on both sides that are there. I mean, everybody thinks that, not everybody, but a lot of people think that the groups are larger than they are. And I said, they're not larger, they're louder.
Right.
They're fighting for they see themselves as fighting for their survival. We talked about Vietnam in the last episode. and the fact that the people of Vietnam were fighting for their lives and for their country and for everything else. That's what the far right extreme people are thinking they're doing, is they're fighting for their very survival and what they see as their place in the universe.
Right here.
If we have trans people, then they lose something, even though it doesn't matter to them at all. Do you want to mute for a second? And
no, I'm trying to make eye contact and kind of drive the noise out of the room, but it wasn't.
Okay. Okay, so and it isn't coming through the show, so don't worry about it.
Oh, good. Well,
it's kind of like background noise. Yeah, no.
Yeah, well, it's affecting me trying to follow our conversation.
Okay, so and so they're very loud because they fear they're going to lose something. And I can go into all of the arguments about the things that they're othering, that are being othered, that they're not othering, but are being othered to make them feel like they can maintain some power. But that's all being done to distract.
I would argue that that's both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, more from one side for the last 2 years than the others. The other side is just going, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, it's more the perceived left is more in reactionary mode to what the moves of the right. I mean, every time there's legislation coming through that's taking more rights away and more authoritarian, there's a reaction to it. So there's a lot of noise, but the noise is reaction to an action on the other side, because the other side is playing to a very small vocal base. Bo of the Fifth Column says, it explains it this way. A lot of people on the right are listening to an echo chamber of very vocal minority, and they're doing actions based on the echoing of that minority to pander to them for votes.
And yeah, see, I see that from both sides, almost in equal measure.
Yeah, but the other side isn't putting through legislation that's harming people.
Oh, I see it here in Washington State. The very left side right now is putting in legislation that's harming small business and stuff. So again, I see it really in equal measure from both sides.
Point taken. Point taken.
And pardon, we're glitching.
Your point is taken. I'm agreeing the point.
I still can't quite make.
Sorry, I'm agreeing the point to you. Are you losing my audio?
Yeah, your audio is really choppy.
Hold on, let me see if I can boost this a little bit. That better?
Better? I think so.
Okay.
A little bit. We still don't have any video.
Okay, no, my video. Okay, hold on.
Audio's getting better now.
Okay, my video looks to 5x5 according to the test.
Now you're back.
Okay.
Nope, now you're back. Everything's back.
Okay, cool, weird. I just checked the tests. I just went to the test phase. Okay, so I was conceding your point. Yeah, the attack on small businesses, or the misunderstanding or the lack of understanding of small business by people who've never been in small business is
right.
Amazing, astounding. More importantly, and I'm going to go back.
Huge in this state.
I'm going to go back 5 years now to an absolute raving travesty of just blatant ignorance. There was a movement 4 or 5 years ago in the state of Washington to raise gas taxes 50 some odd cents so that we can solve climate change, whatever the hell that means. Now, the first level of ignorance is raising the gas tax would bring money into the state's coffers. But the way the state, in my understanding, and if I'm wrong with this, please comment on this. My understanding with the state is that there is all of that money goes into the general fund to be used. It's not going to be in some special climate fund. And there was no clear path to fixing the climate problem with this money, as if one state could do that.
But we still have to identify the climate problem.
Right. And so the issue here was that they were going to do that, and the people supporting the movement were predominantly well-to-do, upper middle class to well-to-do people who drive Priuses and Teslas. When I went into the room, that is all that were in the room over in Seattle for a presentation to Governor Inslee and his group of people.
Yep.
And I'm looking at these, and I basically stood up and said, "Do you realize that you're about to devastate the lower income people and service workers in this country, in this state? You're going to make them unable to survive. You're going to add to the homeless rolls. You're going to make it so people." You just froze up. Can you? Oh, you're back. You're going to add to the homeless rolls. You're going to add to the lack of work rolls because people aren't going to be able to afford drive their cars with a 50-cent extra tax on it. And I say this going to the gas station today and having to pay well over $4 at the cheap gas place to fill my car.
Right.
Again.
Hey, I own 2 diesel vehicles that haven't moved in over a year.
So my point is, people make these decisions without actually anticipating the consequences to the people around. So I guess this goes to my point that we can't look to government to solve the problem.
Correct.
Government should be and is predominantly reactionary. So I'll say something I've said many times in these shows. When 75% of the people are already moving in that direction and solving the problems, the government will jump out in front with a flag and see how we've led you here.
Mm-hmm.
Without having done a damn thing to get us here. Yet, how many people do you know believe that the government's going to fix this for us?
Most of the people I talk to are perfectly happy to elect the people that say they're going to fix the problem.
And how's that worked out so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works out really well for everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we've moved so much farther ahead on this. So, I mean, I don't talk much about Cascadia Rising anymore, though we know we're well in the window of it. There's the Seattle quake. There's climate change. The dominoes are stacked up. Not to mention that, as I've talked about many times, our economic system has put us in a point. The economy is destined to collapse at some point, and we can only move the pieces so many times to play like it's healthy.
Yeah, and it's not a Ponzi scheme.
No. So
well, it's approaching one, and that's not sustainable.
No, and so we're looking at this going, we've got dominoes lined up. When do we start working together to fix things? And it isn't going to take very much to start that process. How about just starting a garden with your neighbors in your front yards? Take out the damn lawns that are useless anyhow, and grow vegetables. With food prices going up and the shelves emptying out, growing food is a really viable thing for everybody to share doing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I couldn't agree more.
So why don't we just start there and have gardens together?
I love the idea, but do you think that's a feasible answer in this day and age right now with the division that we're suffering through?
I think that if you actually go, I think that in your neighborhood, in most neighborhoods, there are probably 5 or 6 people that garden already.
Oh, we garden.
Yeah. You have chickens.
Huh?
You have chickens.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're making arrangements to get a truckload of nice seasoned horse manure for the garden.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to put any starts out yet. It's been too dang cold.
Yep. So you're already doing some gardening. I bet you there's other people in your community, in your local community, that does too. And if you start working together, then what you don't garden, they may garden, and then you start swapping vegetables. And that we're not talking zucchini here. We all know that zucchini is a plague, that people will drop baskets of it on your door and run. But we're talking, broccoli and other things that make up a meal. So what you need to do is start there. Start there. Now, how about this? Let's say there's somebody in your neighborhood who works on vehicles. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there's another person who does taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who works on vehicles doesn't know how to do taxes, and he stresses about it every year. So what if he trades a tune-up or a fix on somebody's car for them to do his taxes?
Hey, I love the barter system. I've got one of the most barterable things anywhere.
So if each neighborhood had this going on, that would build resilience and skill sharing and skill awareness, and start heading toward mapping a neighborhood, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
And then that leads to conversations on a human level without getting politics or anything else, social status, politics or anything else involved. You can start talking about the need for water and how we're doing the water system, power, all of these things, and things can start changing.
It would sure be nice. I think we as a community need to figure out how to get past all of our division right now, and that's what I'm hopeful of.
Funny you should mention that. So not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, at the Kitsap Regional Library on 5th Street in Bremerton, the downtown one, we will start up our workshops again. We've been doing them. Right. We took a break for 2 weeks because we have events on the weekend, and we'll probably do that more in the summer. But the whole point of the workshop is to take a person from the community and teach them how to overcome cognitive dissonance and the divisiveness, how to ask the next question, how to help their neighbors get through the process to have a meaningful discussion and come together.
I like that.
That's when what we do. It is on, let me pull up my calendar so I can tell you exactly. It will be on the 29th at the Kitsap Regional Library at 12:30.
What day is 29th?
Saturday.
Okay.
So it'll be from 12:30 until 2 o'clock. And we are doing, we will be doing the session 1 of the workshops again and again, because session 1 changes depending on who's there and what it feels like we need to cover, because there's so much information to cover. You can do session 1 7 times and never cover the same material twice.
I hope that ends up being a kind of a big event for him. I mean, unfortunately, Saturday at 12:30, I will be, yeah.
No, I'm gonna go down and.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll follow up with you on those, because I do want to hear how they kind of chug along.
Yeah, we've been dropping flyers off to you, and you've been handing them out for us, and we will start doing that again next week.
Perfect. Yeah, bring them by.
Okay. So yeah, we've been working on that. We've got new materials, and actually we will be at the South Sound Sustainability Expo this Saturday from 10 until 3. It will be at the University of Washington campus on the Prairie Trails Walk, and we will have a booth there. So and G2 will be joining us.
Okay, I missed part of that. We had some nice guests come in.
University of Washington, Saturday.
Yes.
From 10 until 3, and it's hosted by the city of Tacoma. It is the annual South Sound Sustainability Expo.
That's the part I missed. Okay.
Yeah. It's a big mouthful.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I've go ahead.
And I will have a big pot of coffee for anybody who comes by and wants a warm cup of coffee.
You know how to bribe me into something, don't you? I'm easily bribed. Yeah.
Yep. Coffee. I might even have some candy apple red under the bar or under the table.
If you're running low on that, let me know.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, we did the community walk last Saturday that was hosted by Kitsap County. Made some great contacts there. We are going to be at the South Sound Sustainability Festival. I'm happy to continue this conversation there with anybody who wants to come down and question me. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. Just keep it polite.
Yeah, it's funny. That's one of the other obstacles to this mess that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so polarizing, I guess. It gets back to that idea, that everything started with, good and evil. And good and evil leads us down the path to us and them. And, nobody talks to them. You can't talk to them. They're the enemy.
No one's ever been able to tell me who them are.
Yeah, but it tastes different.
Them is the opposite of us. And
again, I've never been able to find them. If they did, I'd probably kick their ass. But I've never been able to find them.
Right, but them is them's the problem, right?
Yeah. The thing is, there's only, if you go back to it, there's really only us.
Oh, Lord,
So, hang on just a second.
Okay.
That's actually the legal minimum for gin.
Let's just hope that he doesn't make me tap dance, because nobody wants to see that.
Say what?
I said, let's hope that you're not gone long enough to make me tap dance, because nobody wants to see that.
Oh, no. I just turn my head and talk that way for a second.
Okay, so
No.
we're at us and them, and personally, I think there's only ever us.
Yeah.
Really, that's all
what
there
it
is.
should be. But
Yeah.
but when we go back to this conversation about good and evil that everyone's got their head buried in, good and evil gives us and them.
Oh my God! Somebody talked about a vasectomy preventing abortions on Facebook this morning, and which I thought was pretty funny. But then somebody quoted Deuteronomy about the augmented or invasive operations to that region of a male, and he came back and said, "I think you misunderstand what's involved in a vasectomy, because there is no crushing and or removal." So
No.
there shouldn't be any problem with getting into heaven.
No, just a little snip.
Yeah. So I find it amusing that, we can go over that another time. I try and stay off of religion and politics, though it's not entirely possible. But when we actually have the conversations with people, we stay completely away from it. We talk about humanity. We talk about us.
Right.
And if you think about it, there's us, and then there's this playbook that's been running for 15,000 years.
Yeah.
And that playbook is essentially a machine that keeps us trapped where we are. It's that cultural cancer I talk about.
Well, it's hard to talk about us without getting into religion and politics, because religion is the earliest form of politics.
Yeah, well, I disagree. I think that it's very easy if you try to stay away from that and just talk about what the human need is.
Yeah, well, yes.
As far as I can tell, that the government nor religion is coming in and feeding your family, and or putting gas in your car, making your job easier. Matter of fact, you say quite the opposite. So if we talk about what you need to survive and what you need to thrive, government and religion doesn't really play into it.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But people try to find a way.
That's because they're trying to create divisiveness.
Yeah.
And we just have to go, let's just talk about us for right now.
Do you have a gin label?
Yeah, and me, I prefer not to have the government in my bedroom with me.
I agree.
And that's as human as it gets.
Yes. Hang on, have a second.
Okay. All right.
I had to pretend to be a stepladder.
Okay.
That was my stepladder impersonation.
Well, you'll have to step it up. All right. So we're at 12:59. Tom, do you have a last word or comment?
No, because this conversation could easily go another hour.
It would, and we're going to continue this to some degree next weekend or next Wednesday.
Okay.
At our normal time.
Okay. Would you like to chat again on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think that we can continue. We actually talked about doing this was about hope, and the hope is that we are seeing tipping points reached. There's a lot of good things happening.
Yeah, I think I want to chat with more Gen Zs. I love going out into the world and having conversation, and my access to your typical Gen Z it's not ideal right now. I have access to lots of millennials, but not a ton of Gen Zs, and I want to pick some Gen Z brains.
Yeah, and just listen. I was actually looking to have one on. I found out she's moved to Milan.
Oh.
So a little hard to, every time we try and go overseas, it gets really hard to sync it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me do some research, because I've got one or two that I think we could probably bring on that would be interesting to just let them talk.
Oh, heck, I'm just going to go down to the bar and buy someone a drink.
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to do is try and round up in a few weeks is put together a Gen Z program, the Gen Z episode.
It'd be interesting. I'd like to listen in on that. I think not necessarily contribute, just listen.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing a lot less talking. I'm just going to let them talk about the world as they see it. That's how I'm kind of thinking about it.
I love it.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. We did actually talk about hope in all of these different things.
Yeah, I think we have to dig deeper before we're really going to see anything. Before we see anything hopeful.
I see things hopeful every day, but I do this 24/7, and I read a lot of stuff. There's all kinds of things that are moving in the right direction. It's just you never hear about it because all of the loudness is coming from people who don't want it to change at all.
Yeah. So I will have you know that the conversation you and I had, well, with Marwan too, this meeting that we had last week on Wednesday, kind of took over the conversation on the radio Wednesday night.
Oh,
and we just picked up and ran with the topic of good and evil, because no one had made any plans for the show. And someone asked me, well, what have you been up to today, Tom? So I told them.
So how'd that go?
It was interesting. It got, well, as you would imagine on that show, political.
Yeah,
and of course it was supposed to, but it was kind of funny because the recognition of that idea of good and evil, and then the division that we're suffering through right now, it just brought us right back full circle. So,
and you realize that it's not really a good tool for trying to solve problems.
What, good and evil? No, it's a terrible tool. Yeah, terrible. But
so there we are.
It's an old concept. It's a really old concept.
A couple thousand years.
It's going to take a long time for us to get over it.
Yeah, if I ever feel like putting on my fireproof breeches, I might actually go into talking about how the Bible, the Old Testament, became the Old Testament, and why it always dumbfounds me when people are quoting it like it's something that should be read today as law. And I do you not know how it was formed and where it came from? Do you not know the history of it? And because if you did, you might have a different opinion, or you may not.
And, the old stuff, just because of my education, my background, there's still relevance in the old stuff. There's still important messages and ideas. But they need to be refreshed every once in a while and brought up to up to speed, if you will, up to to today's standards, not 2,000-year-old standards.
Well, yeah, but the 2,000-year-old standards allows people to control other people and and pay attention to what's in their bedroom as opposed to what's in their own bedrooms.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly one of the big aspects that's a drawback.
Yeah,
but there's
and I've got nothing wrong with the Bible. I have no bones to pick about the Bible. It's how people use it and refer to it and apply it that I have some issues with, especially when it starts affecting my life.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I'm not even necessarily picking on the Bible. I'm talking globally speaking, old religions. Islam and Hindu and Christianity and all of them. That you get little nuggets here and there that are still usable.
Yeah. Buddhism. I use a lot of the thoughts of Buddhism frequently. All right. Too. So it is now 30 seconds left for the 1 hour show. And I know we're a little over to the 2 o'clock line, or the 1 o'clock line in this case. So for Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, I'm Mark Boatwright Frost. Marwan is sending his best wishes. and Tom Martin from Blackwing Distillery, though you're probably going to be seeing a lot more of Tom in the near future. So that's the show for today, and we will see you next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, but no Batmobile. Have a wonderful day.
It's a cool car, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. All right. Bye-bye.